Hello, hello. Welcome to Brand Rewind Live. Thanks for being here. We so appreciate you. I'm Denise Kegler, MTK Brand Management, coming to you from a chilly Boston, Massachusetts.
I can up that because I'm Marika Phillips Bell. I am with B3 Media Solutions, and I'm coming to you from a balmy 84 degrees in Los Angeles, California.
So very jealous. Hello, everyone. I'm Fatia Abdul Razak with the Stylista Group, and I'm coming to you from a chilly New York City.
Well, like the popular demand, I'm in the T dot. This is Zoe Mitchell of Sharp Processes, and I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Burr.
So we are all here and thankful that you are here as well. So on this, and I want to make sure I get this right, I want you to be happy day. I want you to be happy day.
I
Yes,
like that.
I
I like that.
I like that too. It just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So hopefully we all did something to make somebody happy today. So let's go ahead and hit the rewind button and learn from the brands, either personal brand or business brand that both hit and missed the mark. So kicking us off with our first segment, Brands on the Hot Seat, is Patia. Patia, what you got?
Yes, a not so great story here. So last week in New York City, we had the head of the psychiatry department at Columbia University. This gentleman, his name is Jeffrey Lieberman. He reshared an image of Sudanese model. Her name is Nakeem Gatwick on Twitter with the caption. Hopefully you guys can see it. Whether a work of art or freak of nature, she's a beautiful sight to behold. Of course, Twitter went crazy for this, right? He was initially suspended and then eventually fired. He then later wrote an apology first to his colleagues and then to the Black community, and followed it by an apology to all women. I think this is definitely a teachable moment here, and it illustrates why we should all think before we tweet. I'm going to assume that this gentleman didn't really mean any harm. He was clearly trying to give a compliment, but he should have thought about what he said before he actually wrote it, right? And so, unfortunately, the first time most of us are hearing about him, I'm sure he's done amazing things in his past, but unfortunately, the first time we're hearing about him, he has done something not so smart. So, Barika, what do you think of this situation?
Patia, I think we've all said and done things that, was in the moment.
Right.
And unfortunately, and we live in a day and an age where people capture that. And if it's on social or you say things on television, like it can easily be turned into a thing. So I think that the biggest takeaway from that is you have to think before you speak.
Mhm.
That is a key thing, especially if you're in a public position and a public figure like that.
Absolutely.
Think before you speak.
Absolutely, because this will follow him, I'm sure, for a very long time, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, so Barika, what do you have?
So ladies, I know that we don't really get into the political spirit, but honestly, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't take a moment to actually address kind of like what we're seeing. So many of the well-known brands and the actions and behaviors that they are taking in response to the very public issue that's going on in Ukraine. So many brands and Americans in this aspect. Morning Consult actually did a study with 2,200 Americans to understand how they feel about supporting brands that are taking action against Russia because of the invasion of Ukraine. And so you see here on the right, so many brands have actually come out and stepped out and shown, either pulling out of Russia, either pulling out their employees that work there, just because they are in support of the Ukrainian people and making sure that they don't take a silent partnership in what's happening. And honestly, I love the fact that they're doing that. But beyond that, on the hot seat are the brands that are taking a performative allyship with this and actually just posting and doing things that have no real meaning. And if you aren't familiar with performative allyship, it really is about sharing knowledge about inequity in others, but they're not using their privilege and resources to make a real change.
Mhm.
And so we've seen a number of brands fall to this, like, you know, when George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and so many different things happened last year, you know, there were so many brands that fell prey to that. So some key takeaways that I really found with this is just making sure to be a good ally. Listen to the conversation, understand what's happening, go in detail and understand that. Research. If there are resources before hitting a button and posting about, hey, I support this, know your research, know what's happening, know what's going on. And lastly, don't feel obligated to post about it on social. If you're going to do something as a brand, you can just do it. I'm sure the news will cover it, but you don't always have to post about it. And unfortunately, we had an incident with Kylie Jenner posted, you know, her marketing directly after posting about, you know, helping Ukraine. So if you are out there, I'd love to know your thoughts. Put your thoughts, your questions in the chat. We would love to, your comments. We would love to hear from you. And we'll bring this up back at the end of the show just to talk about it, because I definitely think it's worth having a conversation. So before we go on, I want to kick it over to Denise. What you got?
You know, it's first of all, yes, what a great topic, and we invite the folks who are here to go ahead and post in the chat your thoughts about that. We want to hear from you. If you have questions about it, and also just anything we talk about during the show, please do go ahead and post in the chat. I want to give a shout out to a few folks who have joined us. So hey Joe, hey Dora, hey Cheryl, hey Tammy from wow, look. Patia, look who's here.
I know.
Gosh, far away, Tammy.
Yes.
Come on now. Anyway, so thank you guys for being here. Again, please post your comments, your questions, comments about anything we're talking about, questions about anything we're talking about. So my brand in the hot seat. Now, I'm sure you guys, I'm assuming you guys have heard about this. I'm gonna put my glasses on. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. But it's John Dempsey. John Dempsey. He is the Estee Lauder Executive Vice President who found himself in the hot seat this week when he posted on his personal Instagram page what was deemed to be a racial slur. As a result, at first he was suspended, and then Estee Lauder fired him. Now, what was fascinating about, there was a whole lot fascinating about this. So again, John Dempsey, he was the EVP of Estee Lauder, which encompasses a bunch of brands underneath the parent company. He did issue an apology. I want to just read the first part of his apology. So again, we're talking about brands on the hot seat, and it actually goes back to one of the earlier segment or the earlier story. But he said on Instagram, his apology: "I am terribly sorry and deeply ashamed that I hurt so many people when I made that horrible mistake of carelessly reposting a racist meme without reading it beforehand." Right? Same thing that we've been talking about, the importance of reading
Yes.
anything, any kind of comment. If you're going to repost something, make sure that you read it first, because guess what? That, whether it's something positive or negative blowback, it's going to blow back on you.
Yeah.
It's going to blow, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, his world blew up. And what's unfortunate about this is his apology it seems to be heartfelt. I don't know this. I don't know John Dempsey at all. But in reading his apology, it seems heartfelt. And what is unfortunate is that he is responsible for several Black women to be brought into this world as collaborators or spokespeople, including Rihanna and Mary J. Blige.
Wow.
So yeah, it's another example, right? Another example of a brand blowing up because they did something without thinking about it first, or certainly without reading it. So curious, interested to know what you guys think. Please post it in the chat, and we'll address it at the end of the show. But yeah, definitely a hot story this week. Hot story this week. Zoe, what you got?
Yeah, for me, I just have to say there's something about intent versus impact,
Right.
but it's all about your brand. Especially as leaders, we have to be cautious of what our brand is. We are leading teams, we are role models for the company and for ourselves in that position. So
Absolutely.
my story this week is a little different. I'm going to ask that you just watch this video clip to give you a little bit of background.
And that's the term regressive criminal prosecution.
Oh, Lord.
The assault marks the latest in a staggering year of airline passenger disruptions and violence. Nearly 5,000 incidents reported.
So that's a little snippet of what my topic is. The thing that caught my eye was this title: Flight Attendant Smashes Unruly Passenger Over the Head with a Coffee Pot. So I'm still trying to recover from the Sunwing party plane that happened 6 weeks earlier. And now I'm seeing this headline. And so here's the backdrop of that story. The US Department of Justice basically posted that a 6'3", 240-pound male passenger made his way to the front of the plane, threatened the flight attendants, started fighting with them, including grabbing a plastic knife, a bottle, and tried to smash the bottle and said he was going to get into the cockpit. And instead of going to the cockpit, he detoured and went to the emergency exit and began pulling on the emergency exit bars. And that's when all the other passengers jumped in to try and save what was about to happen. And the thing for me is, my brain went, is that American Airlines again? What's going on with American Airlines, right? Because here's the thing, 4 months earlier, a flight was diverted from New York to Jersey, and a passenger tried to punch an agent, which you saw in that video clip. He was taped to his chair, duct tape to his chair.
Wow.
By the crew and by the passengers. 3 months ago, another passenger in a business flight punched a flight attendant in her head twice because she accidentally knocked him and apologized. So my feeling is, this is the third time.
Right.
I have two rewind moments on this one. My head, I'm like, COVID restrictions are lessening, which means more people are traveling. And if this is happening now under COVID restrictions, what are we all walking into?
Right.
I don't know.
For me.
But Zoe, you are our airline correspondent.
So true. So true.
All
Our
things airline,
transportation
I'm coming to
correspondent, yeah.
Zoe.
She has her finger on the pulse of all drama airline related for some reason.
I don't know. It just finds me.
And there's a lot, and there's unfortunately a lot of content
There's too
out
much
there.
going on there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But for me, it's like, passengers, if you're having a bad day, if you don't want to wear a mask, don't go on the flight.
Right.
Don't act up. You have a personal brand, you're going to end up on someone's cameras. The second thing is, for me, American Airlines, 3 times in 4 months. Is it safe to fly with you? We saw the CEO talking about harsher fines. What are you doing as a preventative measure? What are you screening? Because one of those passengers looked inebriated. Are you stopping alcohol service? What are you doing to protect your crew? What are you doing to protect us safely to get to our final destination? So I'm leaving it there, ladies. I don't know if you want to add to it.
No,
Yeah.
I think you said it all. There has to be more action than a fine because they clearly don't work.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I haven't, well, shoot, probably shouldn't say this out loud because I've flown several times since the pandemic, but I haven't been on one of those flights yet. And I wonder what I would do. I mean, do we know what we would do if we're on a flight and a fight breaks out? I mean, I just hope if it happens, I hope I'm far away from it because
Right.
I don't want to be in the middle of it. If it happens with someone who's next to me or behind me or in front of me, my goodness, what do we do? Like,
I'm
what do
going to pull out my cell phone and I'm going to tape it, and then I'll be on the news segment talking about it.
Right? I don't know.
But that's just me.
It's like Passengers Gone Wild, but
Passengers Gone Wild.
Right? Like, but from a standpoint of these airlines, like, what are they doing preventatively?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense addressing things in the back end.
Yeah.
You got to,
Right.
part of the pitch is safety while flying with us.
Right.
Yeah, I did read somewhere that that, and maybe I don't know if I think I read this, that the flight attendants are going through training, like self-defense training. Did I make that? Did I dream that, or didn't I read that they're going through some kind of self-defense training to deal with some of these incidents on these planes? But we don't want our flight attendants to have to worry about
Right.
fighting on an airplane, right? We don't want that.
No.
Goodness.
No. It's
Yeah.
unsafe. It's an unsafe working environment.
Absolutely.
So I my heart goes out to them, and I hope that American Airlines does better by their crew, their passengers, and the entire staff that works there.
Absolutely. On that note, I want to jump into our next segment because I'm excited. Lift as you brand. This is the section that we get to highlight a brand that we can learn from. And I know Barika has some great stuff for us this week. So I'm going to kick it off to Barika.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start with a video. I just wanted to share it because it makes my heart warm when I see it. So let's play the video so everybody can see it. So this was a video that was pulled from Daytona race, which Robert Wickens. Now, if you're not familiar with racing, ladies, I love racing. So if you're not familiar with him, he actually is had a very heartbreaking accident as a racer. But Hyundai, as well as Brian Herta Racing, actually did a race this past one. They brought him back. They retrofitted the car that he's driving so that he was able to drive. And so I think that this does so much for the brand in the fact that not one, but two of the top podium finishes at Daytona came from a disabled person and a woman. That's just literally amazing. And I think it just goes to show how wonderful it is when a brand actually shows diversity and representation in action. It's not something that, a lot of people talk about, a lot of brands talk about, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that. But to see how they had gone and retrofitted a car and then having a woman in the top spot, it's not something that is seen very often, and been able to showcase what they're doing to showcase representation. And I wanted to share this post because you guys know I do social listening and I love getting into the comments, getting into weeds. And this person says, I know this is likely just to get seen by a social media person, but thank you, VHA, for bringing Taylor, Robin, and Michael to the track. I'm a disabled woman who has loved racing almost my whole life. Representation really matters. And you've just made little girls, disabled kids, and disabled people so incredibly proud. They can see themselves as drivers or engineers or whatever they want. I don't think I've ever been so proud or excited than I was seeing the 33 and 54, those are the race cars, spending so much time in 1 and 2 and knowing that people like me were involved in making that happen. Thank you to everyone that was involved in your program who makes this possible. Your drivers are showing the world what disabled people and women can do.
Wow.
That was like the most wonderful comment that I think, a brand can get around representation. When people can see themselves and your drivers can see themselves as anything, whatever they want to be. It warmed my heart. I don't know about you ladies. How do you feel?
Yeah, same.
I think it's fantastic.
Definitely.
100% matters.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just had to share that because I want to see more of that. I want to see more brands like showcasing their representation and putting it front and center, because it's a great way that, we as a society can see what it is that we can be and the things that we can do.
Wow. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for bringing that, Barika.
Just here to bring a little joy.
It's funny.
I love it.
It takes us back to our day. What's our day today? The recognition day today, which is
Happy.
I want you to be happy day.
Right.
So hopefully that made somebody happy.
Definitely made me happy for sure.
Now I want to bring a little drama, ladies. our third segment, rips from the headlines.
Uh-oh, got the sound effects. We got the
I
sound
know.
effects.
I got sound effects, you guys. I got sound effects.
Ooh, look at you.
Look at us.
Bring the old-fashioned sound effects.
So today we're going to discuss stories, positive and negative, that were literally ripped from the headlines of the latest news. So I'm going to pass it over to Denise, who's going to kick off the segment.
I am so excited to kick off this segment. Talk about a feel-good story. That would be courtesy of Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, I'm not going to pretend I know whether it's Ketanji or Ketanji. I don't know. I actually have not heard her say her name, and I've heard it's pronounced differently on the different newscasts. So I'm going to call her Miss Brown Jackson, so I don't mess it up. But talk about feel good. So unless you're under a rock, then you would have heard that Miss Brown Jackson was nominated by President Biden as the first Black woman nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court to replace Justice Stephen Breyer, someone under whom she clerked years ago. Love the story, and regardless of what your politics are, you can't help but love this story, especially when you think about what she stands for. Not only is she the first Black woman to be nominated, and if confirmed will be, of course, the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, but when you think about what her background is, I mean, she was born in Washington, D.C. I'm a D.C. girl, although I wasn't born there. I was raised there, so yay. She was raised in Miami, Florida. She went to school where I am in Massachusetts at Harvard. Both undergrad and grad, went to law school as well. So I'm going to end with these three things. When we think about someone's brand who inspires, and although, yes, ripped from the headlines, for sure, this is an inspirational brand, someone we can learn from. And there are three key areas that I think stand out when you think about someone who is inspiring an entire generation of not just girls, but women our age. She's an inspiration, right? I mean, she continues and will continue to inspire us. But there are three things that stand out, three bullets I want to highlight that make me just lean into her. One, hard work. I mean, it just shows you hard work will pave the way and hopefully help you achieve your dreams. The second thing that I think she stands for, family values. When you hear her talk, she talks about the strength of her family and how her family has meant so much to us, her parents and her family now, her husband and her I think she has a daughter. And then education. I mean, you can't go wrong with education. And she talks about that a lot. So yes, so my rip from the headlines is the U.S. Supreme Court nominee, Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yay.
Yes.
That's
Zoe. Yes.
So mine,
Who do you have? What do you
have? I have a little juicy one, and I say juicy for the name Juicy Patty's Juicy. So mine is local Toronto, ripped from the headlines. So Patty Shop is what I'm talking about. Randy's Patty Shop. I'm doing this. It was a staple in the Little Jamaica here in Toronto for 43 years. They've cited COVID and several other reasons why they've decided to close their doors. But once they posted it on IG, they immediately got thousands of people responding. And one in particular, AKA Mr. Drake, responded by saying, he'll buy it right now. The following day, the Patty Shop actually influenced so many people that a local personality by the name of Shem created a song. So he wrote the song and then he recorded the song and put out the song about his experiences and childhood memories of this Randy's Patty Shop. So talk about great branding. And my fingers are crossed that Drake can revive this beloved Patty Shop by using his brand to support another brand. So that's it.
That would be amazing.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
No, that is a wonderful story. Love that story. Love Drake.
Yes. Barika, I'm asking for yours.
Okay, so I know that we've all been in the longest group chat ever with a Mr. Kanye West. Well, guess what? We're not getting off that ride anytime soon. I was going to talk about him getting off of social, but he dropped another bombshell today where he buried Pete Davidson, Kim Kardashian's current boyfriend, in a music video. Now, we've talked about think before you post. Pretty much that was the through line for today's show. But
Right.
Kanye West, there's so many different headlines that we've been subjected to over the last 2 weeks, thanks to Mr. Yee or West, or I don't know what his name is. But now it's actually hurting his divorce in custody of the children, because they're taking those headlines and those posts and sharing that in divorce court. So if we can glean anything from this situation, it's this. Always, always, always think before you post. Ask yourself 3 questions. Will this harm me in any way?
Right.
Will this harm another person in any way? And do I want my children to see what I've written? And if the answer to any of those 3 questions is yes, you might not want to hit the send button before you do it.
Right.
Hello.
No, exactly.
So I'm going to kick this over to Patia. Let me
Yes, yes. And I have, thankfully, another feel-good story. Ripped from my headlines would be the return of Madam CJ's Walker's hair care products 100+ years later
Wow.
to the nearest beauty store in your, maybe not in your neighborhood yet. They're definitely available at Walmart, I believe. And this is an effort of her great-great-granddaughter. Talk about family legacy. This is such a moment of pride, I think, right? For women of color, and for the United States, because this incredible woman that came from pretty much nothing. She was orphaned at 7. She got married at 14. If you guys watched her life story on Netflix, you know that she had a really hard life. Yet she didn't let that stop her. She became the first ever self-made female millionaire in the entire country, despite everything that she went through. And it's so heartwarming, because the lifespan of a small business, a solopreneur business, is about what, 2 years?
Yeah.
And 100+ years later, right, her legacy lives on. The products are back. And one of the things that I really hope is that the future generations, so maybe 100 years from now, will be her great granddaughter, that they continue to keep her legacy alive. She has been such an inspiration to women of color especially. And, I just was like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine 100 years later anybody talking about me. But the fact that it is happening, right, is just really a great story that I wanted to end this segment with today. So it's Women's History Month.
Yes.
And ladies, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yes.
All legacy. Love it. Love it.
Our final segment for the evening. The time goes so quickly.
I know.
And this segment is called The More You Know, The More We Know. And are there any questions that we can answer for you guys really quickly before we have to?
I did see a question from Pop Research.
Okay.
Right? How do I ensure my brand is actually acting as an ally? Oh, this is Marika. Why don't you take that one?
Marika, go for it.
Well, I mean, some of the points that I gave were around listening. I think that is like the major step that a lot of brands maybe don't do. They just see a trend happening. Maybe it's trending on Twitter or on Instagram, and they see people posting and say, hey, we should be doing this because it's a perfunctory thing rather than something that they thought about first. So I think you really have to see, does my post add value? Right. Is it going to either teach somebody something, give them resources to get to something so they can do something? So that, to me, is the number one priority step, is just to listen and really understand and digest. Don't just do it as a perfunctory measure of the job. Do it because you're going to add value to the conversation.
Right. And know who you're talking to. Know who your audience is, so you're making sure that you're delivering content that is relevant to who's listening, right?
Exactly.
And I'd be able to add to that too, just to make sure that your internal looks like your external.
Definitely. Brand alignment.
Yes.
Has to.
Yes.
Exactly. Don't ask the question, you better be reflecting it internally.
Absolutely.
And not falling into the trap of jumping on a trend, because a lot of brands do this, right? They engage in conversations that seem meaningful in the moment, but long term There really isn't much behind it. Okay, you guys, so it's almost time for us to say goodbye. If you know a brand that needs a rewind or is doing a great job, we would love to feature that brand. You can send us an email at brandrewind@gmail.com.
Awesome. And make sure that you follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for being here. We so enjoyed it. Hope you guys did as well. Thanks for being so engaged. Love seeing the chats. Love seeing the chats.
Love it in the chat.
Thanks, everyone.
So we will be back here in 2 weeks on Thursday, March 17th, 7 p.m. Eastern. We hope to see you guys then. All right. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Take care.
It's been a pleasure.